Okay, so just to get started, we're going to have a look at who is Baker Baines. For those of you guys who don't know who we are, you are able to obviously read through that, but I'll just quickly touch on some of the main topics over here. We're the fastest growing design and technology partner in South Africa. We are authorized or Autodesk authorized gold partners, and we specialize in those fields shown over there. So architecture, engineering, construction, process plants, and power, manufacturing and civil infrastructure. We do operate a fully licensed, authorized Autodesk training center. We are an exclusive partner of AdoBar as well for those in the structural fields. We have an advocated blended learning approach. So we encourage to have the learning done not only in the classroom and on site, but also to have an online e-learning portal, and we also obviously do the user assessments by making use of the online e-learning portal. We are a DevTech IDaaS partner. We are an HP hardware business partner, so we do provide HP hardware, or we're a reseller for that as well. We're a TopCon partner, and we're a Leica BLK 360 partner, and we also have a BEE level 2 rating. All right, at Baker Baines, we believe in designing a better world. We have the technology role to play an influence, or we have a technological role to play the influencing and the impact in design in today's changing world. We believe in delivering a better project or product, and we ensure that we use the technology adoption process to get the desired results out of there. All right, our industry experience. Our industry experience lays in the following fields: building and construction, civil engineering and infrastructure, project design and product design and manufacturing, process plants, energy and mining. Okay, so for today, we're going to have a look at making use of different selection options, finding some common commands or like shortcuts that guys may not necessarily know, or maybe have forgotten or just need a refresher on. We're going to have a look at, view and identify the BIM project warnings, manage and lighten our BIM models, and know our do's from our don'ts. So what to do and what not to do. All right, so I am going to end that, and hopefully, are you guys now able to see the Revit or my Revit window? Can everyone see my Revit? Because I'm doing it live today, I'm not going to do a pre-recorded thing. So if Revit hangs a little bit, please just bear with me. I just want to obviously go through and show some items that I feel are probably the best ones to have a look at. All right, so first thing we're going to have a look at is just obviously our different selection options. We all know the very basic selection boxes that we can do. Those are obviously the first ones. The other ones is if we need to select items, obviously we can just select them all and filter out whatever we need over here just by checking none. I know some of the stuff is very basic, but you'll be surprised how many people aren't sure of all of these different ways of selecting things. Also, if we need to select something important and we are unable to recognize it, like over here, there's a room, and so I can't pick it up, just use tab to cycle through the selection options, and you'll be able to basically change what your selection is, even though your cursor is in the same place. All right, the next one is if you are able to find what you need to select. So for instance, I want to select this window. You can obviously also right click and say select all instances, either in this view specifically or in the entire project as well. So just be very careful if you need to delete all of this type of window, for instance, on this level. So we're on ground floor, then be cautious if you use this not to choose an entire project, because if you do that and you press delete, obviously it's going to delete all of them everywhere. Okay, so that's just one aspect that I just wanted to have a look at quickly. And finding some common commands. So over here, I'm just going to show good ways of being able to identify or how to basically make Revit work for you. So one of the most common things is guys are always asking, like, if it doesn't have these flip direction arrows in here, like how do you basically rotate something easily, or on placements? If you just like highlight or select your object and you press spacebar, it'll cycle through the different angles that it can be at. So if we have a look at a door, let's have a look at a door over here, and I press spacebar, we'll see it'll cycle through all the different ways that that door can get placed. So that's just something also that we need to remember. It's a very quick way of doing it, as opposed to trying to actually select the item and then using the rotate command and then rotating it around. Also, if you rotate it like this, it doesn't necessarily rotate it around the center of the wall. So a lot of the times you rotate it like that and it doesn't want to work properly. So using the space bar there is like a really good way of just flipping the object around. Okay. Another thing is, if we wanted to see, for instance, if we wanted to see the level above or the level below in our current view, we can make use of our underlays over here, and we can decide what level we want to underlay onto this view over here. So we're on ground floor, and if I wanted to underlay level 1, we'll see that our level 1 information will pop through over here. So that's the roof overhang that we've got there, and obviously the steel section roof outside. Okay, so that's just different things. Remember, before presentation or anything, just to say none over there, just very important. Also, be cautious if you are using the underlay option and you are tagging items. You have the possibility of tagging the wrong items. So just use this underlay as a, basically just as a visual for that time being. I wouldn't work with it on 24/7. Okay. Another thing that we want to have a look at is just with, for instance, with room tags. I actually had something come up during this week specifically where guys were struggling with rooms. So I showed the guys on how to create this is a very basic room schedule. So we can see all the rooms that we have over here, and they're all basically, everything's reading well. You can see all the room names are there, the room numbers are there, and all the areas are calculated. Now, what was happening is, especially for the guys that aren't as confident on Revit or don't have as much experience or not 100% sure on what they're doing yet, you might find, and I'm just using rooms as an example, this happens with a lot more than just rooms, but I'm using rooms as an example. What will happen is guys will try and basically put a room in here. Sorry. Guys will try and put a room in, and I'm sorry, I don't know what's doing the auto create now. Just go to a different view here, room. So the guys will try and put an additional room in, but perhaps they've forgotten to add the tag, or they've got this automatic tag off, and it won't come up with this as an example, or they see it and they ignore it. So then they just say, okay, that's fine. And then they've got 2 room tags here, but now they just room tag, and now it looks fine to them. A quick way to figure out if you got the correct rooms over here without trying to go and select them all is to have a look in your room schedule. You'll see we've created an additional room over here, and it's now, you can see the area says redundant room. Whenever that says redundant room, then you know something's gone wrong and you've more than likely just got double rooms in those areas. And I know that especially on the bigger projects, in the architectural field specifically, you'll have hundreds of rooms in the bigger buildings, and to go back and try and find exactly where that is also another nightmare all by itself. So what you can do is you can just select that row, right click and delete the row, and it will delete this one selected room and any associated room tags as an example. So then we know we've now gotten rid of any additional information that we had in there that we didn't initially need. Okay, so that was just the one part over there that I wanted to show you. The next thing we need to touch on is the differences in linking CAD files and also Revit files. A lot of the guys are, if we go to our insert tab up at the top here, a lot of the guys are importing CAD. I'm not too sure, obviously they haven't necessarily been taught the right way at first, but importing CAD is a big no. So this essentially falls under the know your do's and don'ts. And when possible, try to avoid importing CAD like as far as you can. The reason is because if you import the CAD, it actually brings all those elements from AutoCAD into Revit. So it'll create all your additional line types and text styles and everything that's embedded into your AutoCAD drawing is now going to be brought into your Revit model. And what that's doing is it's basically making actual lines in your Revit model on those specific views. So it's not even in all views, which you really struggle to find. And also it creates a whole bunch of additional line styles. So if we go to manage and we just check out our additional settings here, line styles, if we had to import CADs, sorry, just give it a second. I do have a big model open over there that I want to show something on that's slowing everything down. If we had to bring in our AutoCAD stuff, so over and above our regular lines or standard lines that we have in Revit, we'll obviously get all the additional line styles and types from AutoCAD as well. And just having all that additional information in there is only going to end up slowing down your model, and it's definitely not going to be beneficial. Over and above that, once you've brought it in, you have like no control on how to take it out or manipulate it any further, and it's a very messy way of doing it. So when it comes to CAD links, we just make sure that we always use the link CAD function. A good way to make sure that you don't do it incorrectly is you can just completely leave the insert tab alone and just go to manage links over there. Sorry, the pop-up just came up on the other screen. And then you can go to CAD formats up at the top here, and then you can just add in your CAD formats as you go. So as an example, I want to bring this in, and then these items over here, I'm sure they're all pretty self-explanatory. If you want to bring that CAD file into your current view only, so currently I am in ground floor, want to make sure it comes into this one only, I can tick that on. This positioning is only essential if everyone's got the correct project's coordinates and information in. A lot of the times the CAD files aren't necessarily, don't have that information in it, but I feel it's not really a train smash at all. Colors, you can decide if you want to change everything to black and white, invert them or preserve them. I usually just leave it on preserve. I want to bring in all layers. This is mainly for if the guys have like locked layers or frozen layers or switch layers off in AutoCAD. So it just allows you to bring in everything. This import units, a lot of the times, especially if you're drawing from like a surveyor or someone, their units may not be correct. So the actual project or units within the AutoCAD file itself, most of us work with millimeters, but with the surveyors, they generally work in meters. So if we know exactly what units are being used inside the CAD file, then I suggest we select it. But if we don't, we can say auto detect. Obviously, if you bring it in and you see immediately that the scale is completely out, you know to go check it in CAD and then just make sure that you use the correct units when bringing it in here. All right, so now that I've selected it and I've selected all my options, I can just say open and it will start loading this link in for us over here. All right, so now you can see the link name, the status is loaded, the position is not saved, and then this is the path of where it is. So I'm just going to say okay, and there it is there. So it's not the same building, I'm aware of that. It was just an example. We can see also that it hasn't necessarily come up where we needed it. Obviously, with CAD links, you can just unpin it, and then you can either drag it and move it, or you could even use the align tool to align the different parts of the building. So that's the inside of that wall and the inside of that wall. Let's just bring this to the front to make sure that we obviously know what we're seeing over here, because if I move it up now, I'm not going to be able to see it. It's going to be underneath in the background of my drawing. So I just come over here and change this to foreground. You can also do it on the right hand side or on your properties pane. You can change it to foreground. So let's just carry on aligning it. There and whoopsie. There and there. Now, once you've got it in place, I always suggest pinning it. I've learned this the hard way. You don't pin something, you move it, or you delete it, or someone else comes along, and then it's a bit of a mess because you start updating things, thinking someone's updated their drawings. Meanwhile, you've actually now just accidentally moved it, or someone else has accidentally moved it, and you end up giving yourself more work. Within this link over here, if we had to select this CAD link, obviously we can still use the inquiry tool, which allows us to identify different elements of this CAD link that we have in. So if I select this line, it'll tell us the type, the layer that it's on. It'll give us a whole bunch of line information over there. Okay, another thing we can do is we can go to our visibility graphics and we can go through to the imported categories. Okay, I've got a view template on here, so I can't edit it there. So I'll just go into my view template, and inside my view template over here, I can go to visibility graphics, overrides for my imported categories. And bear in mind with AutoCAD, you cannot just override the lines over here. You should expand it, select them all if you want them all to be the same color, and then we can just override it there. You can also override it, each line specifically. Obviously, I'm just using this as a very quick example. And there we can see it's been overridden. All right, we can also switch off certain lines and layers in that override settings that we were in now as well. Okay, last thing with AutoCAD links as well is if you haven't imported it, you can go back to your manage links CAD formats, and you can either unload it if you just don't want it to be part of your project for now, but you still want to save the link, or you can remove it completely. If you've updated your CAD drawing, then say for instance, we removed this wall over here in our CAD file, and we just wanted to update here. We don't have to go and redo the whole process. We can just click on that and say reload, or alternatively, if the path has changed after we changed it, or if we changed the name slightly, we can just say reload from, and we don't have to then go through the whole process of bringing it in and aligning it again. Okay. The next one I want to have a look at is Revit links. So I'm just going to try and link in a very simple Revit link now. So let's just see over here what I can have. I'm just going to link in this project one. It's not going to be the same building again. It's going to be a separate building. We're just using this for examples. So we can see now it's already loaded in. That was nice and quick. This is our link. Status is loaded. Reference type is overlay. The only time I would change this reference type to attachment is if I'm packaging up my model and sending it off to someone else the old-fashioned way and not using the BIM platform. Then I would change that link to attachment, and it kind of like binds it together so that it doesn't necessarily need to know the save path as well. Okay, so there we can see it's totally different. These are 5-meter grid spacings. It's brought in our Revit model, and I'm just going to go to a 3D view and show some manipulations over here. Please bear in mind, the only way you can manipulate a Revit model is if you've got the full Revit package and not the Revit LT. If you have the Revit LT, you are severely hindered in your abilities of what we're going to do now. So please remember, I'm going to manipulate the visual part of it quite a bit, but anything you manipulate visually in your visibility graphics, even if it's for the links, is always view specific. So whatever I change here is not necessarily going to change in a different view. All right, so I'm just going to go to visibility graphics and go to Revit links up at the top. And this is my link that we're having a look at. It's this one over here, okay? I can go now and start changing the display settings. So over and above being able to half tone and underlay it, I can also go and change the display settings of my link itself. First thing you got to do is always just change it to custom, and just make sure, a lot of the times you may not necessarily have this on coordination, but let's just make sure that the discipline is always on coordination. That way, if your view settings don't allow for certain items, or if anything's gone, like if you've got any different parameters set in place, coordination will always allow you to see, regardless of which discipline that other person's working in. So if you're working in structures, usually you only want to see the structural stuff, so you'll change your discipline to structures, and perhaps you've got a filter on and you won't see the architect stuff. If you just change it to coordination, it should work pretty well. Okay, the next thing we can do is go to annotation categories. I know I've skipped model, but we'll go back there. Under annotation categories up at the top here, we need to change that to custom as well. A lot of the times in the plan views, guys are saying, no, we're seeing, or in elevations, we're seeing the level markers or the grid lines from the linked project, and we don't want to see that. Then you can just come to the annotation categories and just change this to custom. And then over here, you can go look for, as an example, grid lines, and you can just switch grids off over here, and you can switch levels off, and then you won't see them in that view that you've changed it. Going back to model categories, again, we can change this to custom, and we can see over here, there's like a bit of a site or topography over there. Say for instance, we don't want to see topography in our view, we can just switch that off. And with the walls, perhaps we want our walls to be slightly transparent so we can kind of see through and into the building. This is a percentage. I'm pretty sure you guys all know what that is, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. We can change basically the whole colors and everything of it as well. I'm just going to apply these changes for now, and let's see what happens to our model. So we can see initially that the topography has now gone from that link. So a lot of the times you'll receive a model and there'll be like a surface in there, and sometimes you're trying to like work with it and the surface is getting in the way and you can't see properly. You can just go and switch that off, or you can essentially just make things invisible as well. So you pretty much have full manipulation over this Revit model from a visual point of view that you've linked in. Obviously with the CAD, with the Revit LT, you don't have that ability, but with the full Revit, you've got full control over what you see here. So for instance, if I don't want to see the windows now, we just go back to visibility graphics. The shortcut for that is either VV or VG. I use VG, I think it's just a habit. So if you pop in VV or VG, it pops up with this menu over here. And then we can just go to the display settings again, model categories, and start switching off the windows. So just untick windows over there, apply and OK, apply and OK, and nothing has happened. Evidently, did I not switch it off? Sorry. Let's just go back there and have a look at windows again. I did switch it off, so why is it not switching them off? Right, okay, so this is now falling under generic models. So let's go back there and see over here. We'll go back to model categories and just switch off generic models. Okay, apply and okay, and there we go. So now we've switched off the windows. Sorry about that, I obviously drew them very badly the previous time. All right, so that's pretty much that for how to use the models point of view. I just needed to go over that. I think the most important part of looking at linking models was for guys to understand to try and stay away from importing the CAD models, because it does actually cause problems later on in the project lifestyle. Also, don't forget, I know if you just select your model like that, it just selects the whole item. Obviously, you know, if you press tab and you cycle through your selection options, you are able to select individual items from there as well and see all the relevant information in the properties pane of the elements that you've selected. Okay. And basically, the last thing I want to have a quick look at is project warnings. So for this, I'm going to go to an example of some project warnings, purely because that other model doesn't have any warnings in it currently, because it's a very basic thing that was not supposed to have any warnings. So we're having a look at a little more complex model over here, and what happened over here, different disciplines all worked on the exact same model and they didn't link things in together, so there are copious amounts of warnings in here. As you can see, it's extremely slow, but let's just have a look at warnings. If I click on the warnings tab, it brings up our little palette here of the warnings. So it is very slow. And then it says over here, landing, let's just look at this one. Landing depth is less than run width. So it's obviously a stairs issue. Okay, let's look at this rooms one. It's probably a bit easier. So we just expand that, and then we've got warning 409, and then we can expand that one as well. All right, and then you can select your work set over here. Work set 1, room service room number 175, and it tells you your ID over there. So you can either go and show it through here, but I prefer to go and use this number and go and look for it by saying select by ID over here. So what's that? 13359 Watch me forget it this time. Sorry, it's just busy loading. All right, I'm just going to close this. Sorry, it is very slow. I do understand that. I probably do need a faster computer to run a project like this. So if I remember that, it was 1335961 was that element. So now I'm going to go show. Okay, let's just select it. Sorry guys, it is taking some time. Basically what this allows you to do is now to start working through your warnings, because the less warnings you have, also the faster your model becomes, because there's less items for your model to now have to go and read every time you perform a command. Pretty much it's going to go through those list of warnings to make sure that it's not clashing with any of those or adding to it. So what this process is that I'm trying to get to is basically you see your warnings, you get the idea of where the warnings are or around that area, and then you go and find that specific thing and you correct it. So I'm not necessarily sure if we're going to be able to correct this one specifically now, but this is generally what you are able to use to go and identify those issues. I think I've made a very big mistake trying to open up this specific warning over here. All right, while we wait for this to respond again, my apologies, does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like us to look at? Potentially, I don't guarantee that we're going to be able to do everything now, but if you have any questions so far, please just shoot away. No one got any questions? Could you touch on project browser organization? I think perhaps what I should do, because there's quite a few things to go over there, perhaps what I should do is for the next webinar, I can maybe actually make that the main topic and just go through all the different properties over there, because you're able to put like different parameters in to create different like package numbers or parcel numbers for your drawings. So that's quite a nice thing to look at as well. So I'll definitely jot that one down, because yeah, I think that's going to be more than just a quick 2 minutes chat about. And someone else over here, Tobias, has said workflow set up with big sites in different buildings on different levels. Yeah, I think I'm not going to be able to show something like that now because I don't have the big site with buildings on different levels, but if you wanted to, obviously you get from the quantity surveyor, he will be able to give you the project coordinates, and you would have a single central model with the site in it, and then each building that you have would have its own project coordinates, so that when you bring it in and you link the models by using project coordinates and not by origin to origin as an example, then it would be able to place the buildings on the specific places where you wherever you need them, if that makes sense. So if you have your site and you know there's 5 different building areas on that site, you load your site into the one central model, and then in that central model you can link in the other buildings into the correct places by using the project coordinates. I'm not sure if that's more or less what you were needing to have a look at. If you want, Tobias, you can send me an email. I think this Revit has given up over here, guys. I'm really sorry. Let me just pop this one up over here. Okay. I think if you, Tobias, if you want, you can send me an email. There's my email address over there. And then maybe I can make a plan to do a team viewer session with you privately, or try and add it into a webinar, just have a look at more or less what it is specifically that you need to look at. We can have a more in-depth chat about that as well. And then, sorry. Yeah, and then with regards to the project browser organization, I will definitely jot that down and send it off today to to marketing to arrange that to be the next topic. Sorry, what do you mean I should rather do this webinar once a week? I think we do have someone that does a webinar every week. However, it varies, so it's not necessarily going to be me every Friday. There's about four of us, give or take, or 5 of us that go through, and we each have our chances of doing webinars. Are you saying that with regards to Tobias's one over there, where with the big site and different buildings on different levels, is that what you're wanting to do as a webinar, as opposed to me just doing it specifically with him? Okay. All right, cool. Well, yeah, let me have a look at what it is specifically he wants, but I can also arrange for something along those lines to put it into a webinar, just to show how it works, just to make sure that I understand exactly what he wants. But I can also have a look at just showing you how that works. It's just different ways of linking items together. But I think my next webinar then I will do is project browser organization, because I know that is a big problem for everyone. Especially when you're not making use of like packages and stuff like that. It does get very messy very quickly. So I'll definitely, oh, sorry. Is anyone else struggling with the audio? Sorry, I'm just using the computer audio. I don't know, I don't have a microphone specifically or anything like that. But I'm sorry, any other questions or anything you have? There's my email address, and please jot that down, and you're more than welcome to send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But I will definitely be in touch and do the project browser organization as the next webinar. Thank you everyone for coming. Sorry that the audio is bad. Perhaps next time I need to arrange a set of headphones with a microphone or anything like that to try and make it a bit better, but I will work on that. Thanks very much for coming, guys. I hope I was able to show you guys 1 or 2 quick and easy little things, and just to make sure that you're doing things the right way.